Well, the Twilight Dungeons and Dragonsoul have both been open for a week now because today is reset day for NA servers, which is where I play. I just want to take a few minutes to recap on the week, let you know things that have changed in Twilight Dungeons because maybe you've just been sat in Dragonsoul, give you a bit of an update on what my feelings are towards Dragonsoul, having spent a lot of time in there this week on 2 different characters, and really just see if my opinion from previous videos has changed at all now it's all actually here. Well, firstly, with the Twilight Dungeons. These kind of took me by surprise. I was expecting them to be pretty dire, but actually I'm finding myself gearing more and more characters up because it is actually quite fun, especially since the blue buff's been changed. So if you don't know, where before it would stack every 10 seconds up to 100% extra damage, but every time you moved you lost the stack, it was extremely punishing, and this has now actually been changed, so it's probably the best one in there for range DPS because you only have to stand still for a few seconds and it's fully stacked straight away, giving 125% extra damage. Now, there was some cheesy ways that you could actually get 25% of this and benefit from the haste one as well, but that was very quickly fixed. Overall, I've got to be honest, the rate at which you get gear feels pretty fantastic. And then, having pre-ordered the Mr. Pandaria Upgrade Edition, I actually got an 85 boost and I didn't really know what to use it on. So I used it on a warrior. And I went straight in these with a few of the boys as a prop warrior in the full boosted green 359 gear, which 359 is actually pretty decent, even though it is green and it looks like garbage, and was having absolutely no problems at all. So if you do happen to have a boost lying around because you have bought the upgrade edition for Mr. Pandaria, don't be scared just to literally boost a character and go straight into Twilight Dungeons, because you'll probably be fine. Although you will have to try very hard to not get kicked, because when everyone inspects you and see you in green gear, yeah, they might have it out for you straight away. The other thing I actually done this week was started on the Rogue Dagger quest. So I did actually go and do a full normal alt run on my Rogue just to get the quest rolling. And yeah, the mini Rogue quest was just as frustrating as I remember. I didn't look at any guides or anything, I just wanted to go in blind and do the whole stealthing around Gilneas, and it took a while. But the good news is you don't need to do it on your own, so you'll see rogues stealthing around doing it at the same time, so you can just get grouped up and then kill the last boss. The thing that you'll find very irritating without looking at a guide online will be trying to find your way to the last boss, because every time you get seen, you get teleported back to the start and you have to go again. But I would really recommend, if any of you do it on an alt rogue or anything like that, don't look at a guide. Just do it, just enjoy it, because whilst it's frustrating, it was actually quite fun at the same time, trying to work out exactly what route you should take. And I suppose then we should talk about Dragonsoul. I will say straight away before we even get into anything is, in my opinion, Dragonsoul is better than Firelands. And I'm not just saying that because Dragonsoul is the newest raid. I'm saying it because I actually think all of the bosses in there, maybe excluding Spine, are actually just a lot more fun than any of the Firelands bosses, probably including Ragnaros, which is quite a bold thing to say because Ragnaros has actually always been one of my favourite fights. But having done lots and lots of pulls on Madness, and no one's going to like this, but I think I kind of prefer it. It is incredibly tight. And this is the problem with Dragonsoul, or what will be the problem for many guilds, including my own, is that actually you can do everything right, but the DPS checks are so tight that you just might not be able to get the output there. So just for full disclosure, we didn't quite manage to clear the raid in week 1, which is quite upsetting, but we did have a 1% wipe on Madness. Actually, we had multiple sub 3% wipes. So we're there, but we just need to put a little bit more damage out throughout the phases, which we was kind of working on, but we've just run out of time. Now, this is not to say that this was over 20, 30, 40 pulls. We're talking like maybe 100 pulls on the boss. Maybe not quite that many, but you know what I mean. It was really getting up there. And we done 0 practice on Spine Heroic or Madness Heroic on the PTR or on private servers or anything like that as a group. Some of us had seen it on private servers with other people, but not actually together. And then there was other people that had never seen the fights before at all. So for at least 3 or 4 people in our raid group, the first time we pulled Spine Heroic was the first time they'd ever seen Spine, and then onwards onto Madness. So we done hard prog whilst it's live instead of getting hours and hours and hours of preparation in before it actually launched. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, Spine was actually starting to destroy my soul. It's incredibly tight when it comes to both damage and healing, and the fight as a whole, unfortunately, all revolves around about the last 1 minute of the fight. And it's a long fight. It's like an 11 to 12 minute fight. So once you start to get the rhythm down, you're actually sat there for 9, maybe 10 minutes waiting to either get the kill or to wipe, because once you've got the rhythm down, you're not going to wipe before sort of the 8 or 9 minute mark at least, which makes it incredibly frustrating when you're getting all the way to the end and the tendon's on about, I don't know, 5%, and then you wipe after nearly 12 minutes. So it is kind of one of those that you just need to keep banging your head against the wall until you get it, and then this is going to get substantially easier with gear. So as the weeks go on, spine is just going to get quicker and quicker, easier and easier, until the point where you're one phase in each tendon, basically, because on a good tendon, we was getting it down to maybe 26, 27%, which means we've lost probably a couple of weeks of gear and you're getting it down in one. I am talking about purely just 10-man, remember, as well. Like, we only do 10-man heroic. We don't bother with 25 at all. We're not doing 25 until MOP. So obviously your experiences might be different if you're doing 25-man. I had to rant about spine to begin with, but what about the earlier bosses? I feel like the earlier bosses were actually made easier by the fact that we had access to the LFR gear and being able to get our 4 sets early, which is both a good and a bad thing, but I would say from the testing we done on the PTR of the first 6 bosses, they felt significantly easier on live than they did on the PTR. And we've just put that down to the fact that pretty much everyone in the raid's got 4 set, we've got the new trinkets, potentially better weapons, so everything just felt a lot easier. I would still say Warlord Zonos is the hardest boss you're going to come against until you get to Blackhorn and beyond, but quite honestly, Blackhorn even fell down a lot easier than on the PTR. In fact, we didn't even kill it on the PTR, we just moved on. And we done it in 3 pulls, I think, 2 or 3 pulls. That was one that actually took me by surprise, but it still didn't make up for the like 130 wipes on spine to get it down. And then, you know, maybe 80, 90, whatever on madness to come this close to it dying and wiping when the boss's health was on 3%. Which, according to Warcraft logs, is actually a sub 1% wipe. So yeah, pretty painful. Now, because in a recent video I spoke about some tips or things that we are going to do when it came to actually launch in Dragonsoul, and on the first 6 bosses, I didn't talk about Spine and Madness because I said them that we hadn't even done them on the PTR. I thought I'd give you a couple of tips now what helped us get those 2 bosses down, just in case you're working on them tonight maybe because you've got another night's worth of raiding in EU, or you're looking towards them this coming reset. Spider Deathwing really is just about control. It may seem like a big DPS race, but you could do it in 3 tendon phases per spine if you needed to. Obviously, the quicker you get through it, the better, and ideally, you want to be doing it in 2 explosions. So if you don't know, you have to get an add low and then soak up bloods on the floor. That'll get 9 stacks, and it blows up and it exposes a tendon. Now, ideally, you only want to be doing this whole process twice, and then you've got to do that twice per phase. And essentially, there's 3 phases that get increasingly difficult as you go through. So yeah, having enough DPS to do it with 2 is definitely preferable, but you could get away with doing it with 3 on, let's say, the first 2 spines, but then on the 3rd one, you definitely need to lust and do it in 2 because you'll just get overrun by ads. And Prop Warrior is absolutely amazing on this as an off-tank. If you've got that as an option, trust me, Prop Warrior is insane, because by the time you get to the last phase, you're just going to be literally kiting loads and loads of bloods round in a circle. So being able to heroic leap to get away, intervene to people, to be able to get some distance between you and the mobs, like, it's just a warrior's toolkit for it is just amazing. We made it work with a bear druid, but we was able to actually get the tendon down pretty quick, so he didn't have to kite for all that long, although to him it probably still felt like a lifetime. But like I say, the fight really doesn't start until about the 10-minute mark, so you just need to strap yourself in for a long fight and be ready to be extremely stressed towards the end of the fight. Madness is a really interesting one, and far more interesting than I even remember from doing it back in the day. And I think that's because I forgot just how tight everything is, DPS-wise. It's another long 15-minute fight on Heroic, or at least, let's say, 14 minutes. We was getting all the way to the Enrage. We got to the Enrage multiple times where we're actually on the very, very final phase, fighting Deathwing. He's sub 20%, and we'd wipe just purely because of the Enrage. We could have carried on going all day, but yeah, the Enrage is a big issue, which basically forces you to either 2 heal so you've got enough DPS to get through it, but then it makes the healing nigh on impossible, or 3 heal, which the vast majority of people will do, but you need to execute everything perfectly throughout all of the platforms, because you need to get to the final phase with as much time as physically possible, but anywhere sort of 3.5 minutes-ish or 3 minutes should be about enough. But this does just mean there's no room for error in this last phase now, and not a single blood can get through and heal the boss, because the main thing in this last phase is you're dealing with ads, you're using cooldowns, you're getting these 2 big ads down that really wow on the tank, and then every 5% you get a pack of bloods that spawn, and they move really fast, so you need slows on them instantly and if any reach the boss, they heal him. So you can't have any of them reach the boss, ever. Like, not a single one. So you just have to have really good AoE damage on these, and they need to die really, really fast. In the other phase, something that might actually help you, really helped us, is when we very quickly worked out that the same two people were constantly getting crushed by the big tentacle, no matter where they stood. And it turns out the tentacle's picking its targets the same way as the Beftalak does in Firelands, where normally you've got the same 2 or 3 people getting the spiderlings on them at all times, you know, the exploding spiderling. Well, this is exactly the same, and it actually seems to pick the 2 lowest GUID people in your raid, which is basically like an invisible number that you can't see without a weak aura, which turned out for us to be our Holy Pally and our Survival Hunter. So this made it very easy when we could just all stack on the tank and only have 2 people out, 1 either side, basically taking it in turns of getting crushed by the tentacle, massively reducing movement, the amount of healing needed, like everything. It makes it really easy. So a tip for when you get to Madness Heroic, or if you're working on it now, is work out what 2 people are constantly getting hit by it, and then everyone else can stack and just leave those 2 people out, or you can go over and Waggo and find the weak aura for the GUID. But overall, I think Madness is actually a really good fight. I've got to be honest with you, I'm really enjoying it. I'm gutted we didn't get it down, like, don't get me wrong, but again, as a group that never had any sort of real private server experience on this together, or PTR, I'm still happy. Like, I think we done well, but yeah, you know, lots of sub 5% wipes feels pretty bad to end the week on. But overall, Dragonsoul has actually really impressed me. I'm enjoying it a lot. I intended to only raid on 1 character for Dragonsoul to save myself for Mr. Pandaria, basically. You know, just raid once a week in Dragonsoul and then get ready to get my monks up. I'm going to have 2 monks when the MOP pre-patch hits, and then I'll be going in Dragonsoul on both of those for the couple of weeks we get to get them geared up. But I think I'm going to be raiding Dragonsoul on a few characters a week, because I done normal on the rogue, and normal just felt fantastic. I got to be honest with you, like, it felt like a fun raid. Probably because I was coming off the back of hundreds of wipes on Spine, but it did actually feel pretty chill, not too difficult, but still got enough mechanics to actually keep it interesting. So yeah, I'll probably find myself in there quite a lot. And if you want to come and see me in there quite a lot, including tonight when I'll be raiding, because it's reset night, so we'll be going in and starting again, which hopefully we can get to at least Spine pretty quickly. Then I'm over on kick.com/Scottejaye. Come and say hello, and I'll see you on the next one.